These are but the beginnings of the birth pangs. Well, you don't have to look very far or really peel your eyes back to see all the bad things Jesus talks about going on pretty much all the time. Now as then, and in most of the years between now and then, nation does rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, person against person even. And we can see all manner of evil being done in the world, and oftentimes we think, well, if this isn't the beginning of the end, maybe it's halfway down, maybe it's halfway along, maybe the end of things in a bad way is closer than another, right? And that may be true. We do not know. Indeed, given what's going on in places like Yemen and parts of the Congo, Syria, even in the Gaza Strip, and you know, if you're in a place where somebody wanders in with a machine gun and just decides it's his day to shoot it up, that is the end. Or it seems like things could not get worse. And when the people began to write down the Gospels, realizing that Jesus wasn't coming back anytime soon, they thought originally that he would be back kind of next week to fix what was broken after the resurrection. Once they worked out that it wasn't going to be a while, they would tell each other the stories of what he taught them and remember what he had done. And after a while, they realized they better start writing this down so that we don't forget. That's why we have all the gospel traditions, the four you know about, and the many, many others that came to be over time, many lost for years, centuries to the sands of time and the winds of change, but all of them telling a story of the difference Christ made in people's lives and how they remembered what it was he had to say when indeed times got rough. Round about the time, just soon before the Gospel of Mark, our oldest gospel that we have, got written down, that temple that Jesus looked at. And they all looked and said, look how amazing this is. Look at the work they did on the stones. Look at all that they put into this magnificent place. Look at the hours and years of labor and the love and intensity and hard work that made this temple be what it is, fulfilling the design of the imaginer way back from Solomon's day and beyond, back beyond it. Look at what they did. And Jesus, they remembered he had said, one day this will be a parking lot. It will be gone. And when the Romans knocked it down, having tired of the power of that temple in Jerusalem and made it indeed into a parking lot or replaced it with one of their own religious buildings in about 70, the Common Era, 70 A.D., they said, oh yeah, Jesus talked about that. Put not your faith in the works of man. Put not your faith in the works of your own hands. Put your faith in God and what God lets you do with those hands, knowing that it begins and ends with him. That it starts and finishes with the Alpha and the Omega. And that we are not here to build temples on earth, but loving communities that change the world and are always aware that there is nation rise against nation and kingdom rise against kingdom and plenty of signs at the end at any time. And it could be, we never know what will be in a day. If you woke up a couple of weeks ago and went to synagogue in Pittsburgh, as I used to drive by that synagogue when I was young, you had no idea this was a day that people who didn't need to die would die. If you were in Columbine, if you were in Parkland, you were in any of the places. Recently, in the paper, brought the newspaper from the Post this week. Yesterday, they listed all the names of those shot in mass shootings since Columbine. It fills the page. Every single one of those people didn't deserve to die in that way at all. Every one of them. Every name cries out for justice and for it not to have happened. And their blood resounds through all the world. To those who have ears, let them hear. Not only nation rise against nation, but one idiot with a gun rise against his fellow human being time and again and does unspeakable harm. Can't say unforgivable because there's nothing you can't be forgiven for except despair of the Spirit, but unspeakable crimes, unspeakable horrors. And we say, either bemoan the fragility of humanity and the evil of men and women even sometimes, and let us mourn what we are. Or we say, Lord, you have paid the price for our sin. And if we accept that the price of that sin is paid, the very least we should do is sin no more. Do no more wrong. Help other people find it harder to do wrong by changing what needs to change so it's harder to do wrong and easier to do right. Right? And so all those things, right, all that complicated stuff from the book of Hebrews we've been hearing for 6 weeks is all about how whatever you thought you had to do to atone for what you or other people have done, it's all done. He paid the price. The sacrifices are gone. I will remember their sins no more. And now focus on doing what you must do to change the world before you, before us. God done forgive the bad. Now focus on the good. Free yourself to focus on the good. Be like Hannah. The Old Testament's picture of Mary, Hannah and Mary are very much the same type of person. Each one is given this beautiful song that was written years after they lived, but for each one of them, the Magnificat, the Song of Mary, and this beautiful Song of Hannah that we read today together. A beautiful testament to the power of a woman to give life and to treasure that life and that ability to give even when it was denied for so long. And to speak through the power of that giving of life to name what is wrong and what God's going to do about it. Through us, through whatever means it may be. God will guide the path of the faithful, the song says, but the wicked would languish in darkness. Not by human might do we prevail, but the foes of God will be shattered. And what was up will come down, and what is high will be made low, and what was wrong will be made right, if the power of God is made real. And the power of God is made real. But it's kind of like electricity. You got to plug into it for the power to go. All kind of power in the walls, right? Ain't nobody plugged into it. Can't run the coffee pot, can't run the teapot, can't run the whatever it is. All you got's an empty pot and power all around you, but nobody accessing it. Nobody seeing what it does, right? The power of God can be like that. Find a way to tap in. And He's trying to get to us to make us do so. But of course, as Jesus said, and they remembered He said this, lots of people are going to say they're Him. And how you know they're lying. The ones that don't say but do. You know, the quiet people that just do what's right and change the world very gently without anybody noticing. The ones that make the world go round before we know. The rabbis used to speak that there are always 7 sages alive at any time. 7 who would always doing what was right, all different kind of places and worlds. You never knew who they were. But if they weren't there, nothing would work right. The world wouldn't run properly. They never drew attention to themselves. They just did what was righteous and holy in the eyes of God because it was the right thing to do, because it makes the world better, because there is no more fulfilling life than to be a loving servant of God in a world in need of that love. There really is not. As all the characters we find in the Bible who lived good lives proved. We call it faith. But what that faith is in is the ability to know that if you act in love, it will change the world for the better, even if you die for it. The love goes on. And that's why we have hope in what tomorrow can be, when it's always easy to despair. It's always easy to give up. The harder thing is to not. It's always easy to say, I can't do anything. Nothing I can do about it. The hardest thing is to say, yeah, like Hannah, that's true. Now we begin to pray for God to open us to do what we with Him can do. Alone I am nothing. I mean, we're all of value, but without God, I'm just a clanging cymbal. A noise. I know Paul says that's without love, you're just a clanging gong and a cymbal, but the name of God is love. So it's the same thing. Without God, without love, I'm just making noise and using air. But with God and with love, I can, with His grace, change the world for the better. Amen to that.